bola no mun budo mun bini bin we war was what stead never bini mo mun wo me odo buyo mun wo mo won min nda ko wari ju so nyum bi mo ko ko pa ne before men bonu tu gba an we fiai u da bara de pa won mi atamun fiai ko fedoke bolo won me so ni bara mi fiai we pitia mai bin ne we bara de pa won mi o ro fiai mo ona ka da fe bin bi fiai mo ni ba to Jean Pierre Berifa
ya ayin izon ayin izon ayin agara kamimi
moi
emelaka bo so me bo dawa do so me nyem bra me daw bini kan get bo pradaba ane powe yi daw bo bini kan ke prebo e bo wa do so da do ne ai tubo me bini kona go bo emelaka me agada Wait ayo, you look at me. Woman wakere. O comes as a wama. Wadu swaka, a pro camene, tau camena, woman carakere. Carakere back Malabas or Komodo, but let it be far.
Why?
Not Twado comes a poo. Wadu so man will fussy. Down water moon was swimming. And we melagura na twabura ezomya me on bram e bo da wadu so ara ka da kama na ba bra wa e bi kama bra wa e bi ko ma gba mi ezomo mfe ku fe ma la ma fa da ke me ami mene e da to ra me ba mene e fie bobo apotu e fie la mo agbo apotu ke klo yo ko fie me ana me kama bra why urama man wa bra mi e do pre dia bi urama se se kama bra why do anya mi se urum kurum na me e urum kurum na me urum bi ga ta buge man se bra me bua do ne anya ambulu fu me pele yama se da kama ande kan bo fu palwari mi se bo onko se se urum ba gile ku me Urumba seka kumi, baba bon moto pelele kufa.
Why?
Agada kumi.
Moi.
No.
Yeah.
Mene. Agada dawo mo kusone. Fa no profia. Mo po aruzu ye mi. Po dawo die ko bo me. Pabara na buta di mbara fai robara ko yebi na kumo daw ma baraka ko na kudo da biri daw we meneri na ku no amo gurumo be o pio ko na kudo ro wa in fiad lo no pelo pa ka da wa mi ko na kudo ni ba to so pele biri fa
Why?
Aïe, ils ont. Aïe, ils ont. Ils ont comme mi.
Et moi?
Royal Majesty. Wo bi la de yobe. Woni men bonni na bolo wan mangda. Ne woro bi mi kuma saison na ba. Are bi ni parado. Krobi. Dessa vedi wo bon mandava then give me say we do so sabare mi aba krobi dan bolo wan no ba tan so pele berifa
Why?
Ai son agara kamini
Et moi?
da ke da yo bilu kriya ni o si nyoma nyu tu se zon dollar ta la man bra mi si bom en mk na bra bi me si desala oko beke gbiri so me ma re block me do blamu ma re me gbiri se ko si o beke ka da ba kem se na mu so ai so me do be no tu akalaba do bo ni tu ni River State do bo ni tu ni Edo do bo ni tu ni Delta do bo ni tu ni do ne si ye Ogo big now comes in na me big ka go where go moto but like before.
All right.
Hey, agada.
Hey.
Ai, Izo.
Hey.
Binui me. O me sande se be wen pa bu, be mutna la boela ba zon ko para mi e bi bo mondo. De que finha po mondo. Bisa ba na son peu de berifa.
Why?
Men te o binui kulo.
Ado. He's on. Our Majesty does talk. See, I've said that we can interact in English. So let's just stand up and thank our Majesty. So I hand over to okay.
Ai, Izo.
Hey.
Izo come me.
Et moi?
Agada come me.
Et moi?
Well, His Royal Majesty has graciously granted us to change the language from the zone to what all of us can now understand. Well, what you saw briefly was actually our traditional way of welcoming any visitor to the palace. It's not with these visitors alone. Any visitor. This is to show we are some people. We have just done that. Even if you don't understand the language, I feel very free, just a way of welcoming you to Pitema Kingdom and the palace. Having said this, while we are seated, our father walked in. And before we start, some of you may have been meeting him for the first time. Some may have known him before, but he has changed. And it is very proper at this point to introduce to ourselves. Our father was seated before you, and a few people seated with him on this other side. And after I finished, you will start from the first and move around. Depending on how you want to do introduction, His Majesty also need to know everybody seated here. So while we talk, His Majesty can say, "Hey, Peter," instead of saying, "Hey." So you could also do that. And our father is rightly seated before us. And before then, you are in the palace of the Agada Kingdom. The Pitema clan, the number one citizen is here with us, seated in the first family to welcome you. He is our father, well known all over the world, but because you are so precious and important, when your request for courtesy came, he had no option than to say, "Come." No matter how early the year is, His Majesty is not supposed to be resting. I will celebrate the New Year and Christmas. But because of the importance, he said, "No, let's book them. Let's program them. You are always the first in 2022 to visit His Royal Majesty on this very important courtesy call." May we give ourselves a big round of applause. You have come to tap the best of His Royal Majesty. And to waste no time, seated with us here is our father, our very respected father, the father to so many, both here in the Pitema Kingdom and the entire his own nation. He's here with us. His Royal Majesty, King Bubaraye Dakolo, Agada the IV, the in the way of the Pitema Kingdom, and also the chairman, World Elders Forum. Just returned from travel last year to end in one of the yearly meetings of the World Elders Forum. Let's give His Royal Majesty a hand. books published last year. Let's give another round of applause. Despite the very tight activities of the traditional stool, His Majesty made that time to put pen and paper together to produce what we have as a result of the oil thief. I think that clap was not enough. That is our father seated before us. And while you came in, I said this is the first family you have also been welcomed by the mother, wife of His Royal Majesty, whom you may not see, but she's welcoming you. Her Royal Majesty, Queen Bubaraye Dakolo, Brigadier One of his own nation. Let's give her a round of applause. Also welcoming you to the palace are the Prince and the Princess of the Akada Kingdom. Princess Yela Bubaraye Dakolo, and Prince Doifie Bubaraye Nigeria. Honorable Pere Publiki.
My name is Bedford Berefa Benjamin, member of Anna Biasas Chapter.
Good afternoon, sirs. My name is Emily Ayamba, the intended author. I'm from Portugal State. Your Majesty, sir, today is my second time of meeting with you, and my name is Prini Jamabo. I'm from Southern Ijaw local government area. In specific, I'm from Igmatoro. I'm an author as well. Professionally, I'm a broadcast journalist. Thank you.
Your Majesty, my name is Dr. Rita Inoma Abe. I'm a security expert, also an author. I'm also a lawyer. I've written several novels from River State, Bonny precisely. Thank you.
Your Majesty, I am Comrade Nelson Ulia Emerson. I'm a writer from Delta State.
Your Majesty, sir, my name is Wilberforce Okilo from Obia local government. I'm author. I've also written a book titled Rewrite Your History, waiting to be published. Remember Anna Biasas State.
Yes, sir. I am a Kemelaifa. I'm a member of the Glory Number Club, Biasas State. I am from Elagua, Koja, and
Your Majesty, sir, I am Inetso Eyaguru. I'm from Obia. I'm a writer and sculptor. Your Majesty, sir, I'm Ozini Franca. I'm a freelance journalist.
Your Majesty, sir, I'm Mrs. Precious Otobo. I'm a novelist, and I've written several books. This is my second time of meeting with you. It's my pleasure, sir. God bless you.
Welcome.
Majesty, my name is G. Ebin Ogowe, a poet, a pastor, and of course a chief elect.
Your Majesty, my name is Chief Ade Wan from Aulo Community University.
Good afternoon, Your Majesty. My name is Joy Isubu. I'm the Vice President of South Writers Union. That's it, right?
Ayizo,
Hey,
Ayizo,
hey,
Ayi Agada.
hey.
Your Majesty, standing before you is Dr. Ofonime Iyan. I'm the General Secretary of South Writers Union. an academic. I teach in the University of Uyo, written books, and I'm very active as a media consultant. It's my pleasure to be in your palace. Very importantly, I'm so excited to see you keep your tradition. I felt so comfortable even if I didn't hear the words, but I applauded in my heart that this is a kingdom that is so interested in keeping the culture of the people alive. It's really my pleasure to be here. Anyi zong, anyi zong, anyi agada. Thank you so much.
Hi, Zong.
Hey.
Hi, Zong.
Hey.
Ah, Gada.
Hey.
Zong Kadania.
Emil.
I remain Amatari Mozimo, the focal person of the South Writers Union in Bayelsa State. I'm an author, a media practitioner, a publisher. I've written my poetry collections, The Dirty Brooms. Today, let me just complete that. Our General Secretary, I think he didn't mention that, is from Uyo, Akwa Ibom State. And before him, she today mentioned a delegate from Rivers State, Joy Suko. Her Majesty, thanks for having us. Thank you. Hands up.
Hey.
Your Majesty, my name is Annette David West. I'm a teacher. Thank you.
May it please Your Majesty, Munene will sing one of your songs. I'm a member of ANA, Bayelsa, and South Writers Union. Thank you.
My name is Tamuno Cornelius. I'm from Kulubas, friend of the house. Thank you.
Majesty, I'm Doyekomi, educationist, a member of ANA.
Majesty, my name is Bubaraye Dakolo. I am a fine artist and film producer, former staff of Vanguard newspapers. Please be here.
Your Majesty, my name is Esther Oyenkro. I'm from Patani, Delta State. I'm an intending author. Thank you.
His Majesty, I'm Dr. Agoro Nim Solomon. I'm a lecturer at the Federal University of Turkey and the PRO of Anambra Bayelsa State. Maternally, I'm from Tumbia, Alabama family. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Majesty. My name is Benaidi Boyela. I am a civil servant and at the same time an aspirant author. I am from Megbema Gallery, in the local government here. Thank you.
Your Majesty, my name is Charles Akpan Hansen. I'm the focal person, South Akwa Ibom State. I'm a real estate consultant. Thank you.
Your Royal Majesty, my name is Ezekiel Iba. I delegate from Akwa Ibom State. I am also a lawyer. Very pleasure to meet you here.
Your Royal Majesty, sir. Umpeda Francis. My name, and not. Thank you, sir.
Your Majesty, sir. My name is Ofoni Meken Etasa from Akwa Ibom State.
Royal Majesty, sir. My name is Pauline Bonibe. I'm a journalist with New Telegraph newspaper. Thank you, sir.
Hey. Hey.
My name is Epipriye Egempere, the Secretary of the local organizing committee, South Writers Bayelsa.
Your Majesty, my name is Bubaraye. I'm a PhD student at the National Algeria University, Port Harcourt, and today I'm a photographer here.
Akada. come to the end of the introductory section. And for those of you that are here for the first time, let me assure you, nobody comes here and go back without learning a new thing. All of you will learn a new thing today. When you hear His Majesty tell you His Majesty, the reason why you are here, then His Majesty will respond. That is when you learn the new thing. The leader of the team, His Majesty is waiting now, or the spokesman of the team, whichever way you want to be. Maybe the spokesman wants to introduce him to talk, but then it is open to you for His Majesty to know why you are here.
Your Majesty, the Agada the Fourth, His Royal Majesty King Bubaraye Dakolo, the Ibe Nanawe of the Betiama Kingdom. Sir, once again, I'm Dr. Ian, and I'm standing on behalf of my President in Council, Chief Alaska Ekere, on behalf of the members of our Executive Council and the local organizing team here in Bayelsa State. Your Majesty, I stand with all due respect to say first of all that we are so happy that you gave us the opportunity to be your very first guest in the year 2022. And that's something we take your person and your office and your kingdom very serious because you've showed us a very high level of maturity and very absolute astute expression of the very beauty of your culture. Thank you so much for allowing us to come and experience this, and just like your person said, we have learned so much already. So that we don't waste your time, Your Majesty, one of our primary reasons for coming here is to come and identify you as an author king. It's not every king that is able to be a king and then is also able to write. We know what it means to write. And I've not read the book, but I mean, just citing the copy and the volume from there, I know what it takes. Yeah. And you've written a book that has a very beautiful title. Is it the narrative or the tale? The reader of the all. Yeah. And for those of us from the south side, I think we can have some glimpse, some understanding of where that story originates from and what it is trying to say. So for us to have a king that is also writing, it's our pleasure, to come here and identify with you first. These are all the writers that you have in the south side, a cross-section of them. And we have to come to let you know that we're here and that we identify with you and that we like what you're doing. We will be back to Bayelsa because Bayelsa is the host for our conference this year. So we're going to come back here, all of us from all the states in the south side. And so when we come, please expect an entourage that will be bigger than this. So that we can also come and enjoy the beautiful culture that we see here. Immediately we came in, you took us to or you sent someone to take us to the River Nile. So many of us read about the River Nile. I remember I read an article, In Search of the River Nile. To the glory of God, today I saw the River Nile. And I'm going to write a sequel which says At the Bank of the River Nile. That is the beauty of writing. That is the beautiful thing about writing. So we would like to encourage you to continue to write. After this volume, we expect you to write more books. And you will also have the opportunity to see our books. We write from a variety of angles and from a variety of disciplinary engagements. I want to let you know that South Writers Union is a union that came to birth in 2017. We saw the need to come together. We saw the need to take another look at the issues of the people of the South Side. beyond the political perspective. There was need also to look at the creative, intellectual perspective, to see what we can do as writers to continue to project our ideas and to fight our causes. And so we decided that all of us will converge at a town called Kwale in Delta State in 2017. And all our leaders, all our patrons, all our key people in the writing world, the professors, the big people, they all gave us their blessings. The likes of Chief Lambert Toto, who is from this state and who has been a great supporter. Please can we clap for him? So we took permission from them. We told them as young people of the South, we want to gather in Kwale. And they blessed us and asked us to go there. So we gathered there. We now decided to sit down to say, what can we do as writers in the South Side? How can we project our story? How can we look at our heritage? How can we promote our culture? And at the end of the day, it was possible for us to elect a team led by Chief Alaska Ikele. And so far, sir, we've done our very best to see how we can bring these objectives into a place of fruition. Last year, we went back to Delta State in a national convention, which also had representation from Bayelsa and all the South states. And we also brainstormed and took key decisions. So we are saying, sir, as we have come here, you can see your children. We are fully in support of what you're doing, and we are here to tell you that we love what you're doing. We want you to do your very best to support South Writers Union. When we say support, we know how the person of your standing and caliber where you can take this body to. And we solicit that you give us maximum support and cooperation when it comes to the hosting of the writers of the South Side, all of them that will come to assemble in your kingdom. And we're asking that you will do whatever you can to support our local team here. We're also asking that no matter how busy you will be at that time of the year, please make out time and come and be part of us. See what we can do as writers. Your Majesty, so I don't take your time, I'd like to end this statement by giving you a very quick point about your kingdom as I have seen it a couple of minutes ago. He's on.
Hey.
He's on.
Hey.
Agada.
Hey.
Majestic, powerful, strong, young, gentle, powerful, courageous king of Ekbatiama, son of the land, man of candor. We see the full glow, the candor, the strength, and the power of your ancestors before you. Agada, the four. We stand on the bank of the river known to call the strength. The people who made Ekbatiama and Yizon and Agada. Say inside of these strengths and the beauty that we see today, the rising sun that is filled with the stars of a kingdom that loves a people. Kingdom that is built on love, kingdom that is here to last. So the fourth, you're here with your staff. We are here to salute the strength of a man that carries the beauty, the people that stand for truth and justice. Thank you so much.
Agada? Yeah, the palace. When your courtesy invitation came, there was a leader. The leader is here with us. The message for the courtesy has been communicated. His Royal Majesty will not speak if your leader don't say anything. He's the leader. He's here. Let him speak, even if it is 1 second. Then his Royal Majesty will respond. He's on. He's on, come with me. Back to you.
Ani zo, ani agada. I stand on already established protocol. Like my general secretary has said, the reason for our being here is to identify with the king. I've been hearing of him in other places, in Delta State, in Akwa Ibom, but we have not got the opportunity of seeing him one-on-one. So when the local chapter are fully prepared for the inauguration of the chapter, we said they should incorporate the visit of the king in the itinerary. And we are happy that the man that we have been yearning to see is right before us. So we give God the glory. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. If you had not spoken, whatever we do here wouldn't have been recorded. You are the leader. And you have spoken. We have Majesty have heard the courtesy purpose is heard also clearly. At this point, I think it's Royal Majesty the King. I heard you and respond to everything you have said. May you be silent while it speaks.
Et moi?
Agada. Agada. Agada, come at me.
Et moi?
So, Sumanoi.
Yeah.
Okay, in this palace, I'm the only one that has the right to speak any language, any dialect. And luckily, no one has spoken a dialect I do not understand in this place so far. I want to especially welcome SOSOWU to this palace and acknowledge your efforts towards writing our story, the South-South story. I am coming in contact with SOSOWU for less than a week now. Because when what's the name? Atari?
Matari.
Yes, it was when Amatari. Yeah, Amatari sent me, I think, a message somehow through someone, and then I said he should come. So he came and explained a bit of it. I said, okay, it's not a big deal. It's a good thing to meet people, see people. So I accepted that I was going to interact with you briefly today. 4 and 5 p.m. I said you are coming by 2 and you leave around 4 or 5. But you can't go until I let you go. Usually that's a practice. So thank you so much for coming around. You have said a lot of things. Though in the initial briefing, we're supposed to talk about the regular oil field as well. And I saw the desire to talk about Gabriel Okara and his works, particularly the Call of the River Nun, which I believe most of you are used to.
Unfortunately, you are not able to get to his gravesite today, but you have seen a glimpse of the River Non. The River Non is an interesting river. It is the largest distributary of the River Niger. So if you take a cup of water from here, you will be drinking water that is coming from like 4,000 kilometers away. It is not different from the River Forcados, which is usually identified as the continuation of the Niger. But in some books, this is also the continuation of the Niger. And the segment of the river you just saw has a lot of history. And I felt it would make more sense for you to see the river before I talk about it. So I'm going to talk about the river, and then talk about the Kwetiama, and talk about the river Bubaraye. So largest distributary. Now, from where it divides, where the river Niger divides into two around Delta State area, it continues on the other side as Forcados, and then comes this way as the Non. In terms of size, they're about the same, about 1 kilometer wide during dry season, and much more than that during the rainy season. If you come sometimes in the rainy season, you won't know where it ends. It will go as far as like 2 kilometers and so on. But the water is fresh water, brownish, milkish brown, almost all the time, and fast flowing. It is ever flowing. The ebbing is very minimal, though for those of us who are native here, we know when it ebbs as well. But most of the time, it keeps flowing. Now, this segment, the Kwetiama segment of the Non River, has Barantoro as the first town or community, depending on how you want to say it. And we count our communities following the flow direction of the river. So Barantoro becomes the first community. So if you look left when you went to the river, you go downstream a bit, you get to Tombia. We're not able to see it properly from where you stood. But opposite, you have Agudama. And then if you go downstream, you get to Bomodi. Bomodi is on the right-hand side, on the same side as Agudama, and that is the Rolokara's community. For those who are maybe more observant, you must have seen this picture as you came in. Those who were not so observant, you may not have seen it. Opposite Bomodi, we have Akaibri. Akaibri is on this side of the river. So we have 3 communities on this side, on same landmass as Yenagoa, only separated by the Pia Creek. So this is actually the jewelry of Yenagoa. It's the best place to be in Yenagoa. For those who are living the other part of Yenagoa, I don't know what you're missing. Okay, so opposite this part, opposite this landmass, you go downstream, you get to Modi Bene, and then going further down, you get to Ikibri. It is the last community in this kingdom. There's another community of this kingdom in Delta State that is called Afen, in Patani local government area. They migrated from here a long time ago, and that's where they are now. So their dialect has also changed a bit, but they are Kwetiama people. Now in this culture, I know someone mentioned that, okay, as a poet, young man, the person who put the crown on my head was the Relokara, as the oldest man of the kingdom at the time. And he died at about 101. And the truth is that I am older than him. So I am about 106 years old. So even if I look young, I may not be as young as you think. You won't buy goat. I'm just trying to underscore the fact that there may not be a young king, even if they look young. They are old by the tradition and by the customs of the But it's okay when you say young because looks they say deceptive, isn't it? So that may look young. Okay. In terms of the protocols, you did quite well. But usually it's better that you investigate, you ask, you get to know where you're going to, so that you are guided, so that you don't make all the mistakes in the world. Like a few persons have come here and then we give them drink, they put it in their pockets and they want to walk away with it, you know. I'm happy that I didn't make that mistake. But what I'm underscoring is that it's important that you make those small inquiries and then you just won't go wrong. So Equatorial Kingdom has been here. Opposite this community or across the river, that landmass you saw is made popular these days. It's called the Wilberforce Islands. It's a fairly big chunk of land and has a couple of other kingdoms on it as well. But there are 4 communities of Equatorial that are there. And there are 2 very significant historical sites on that piece of land. There's the one they call Agadagbabo, and then the other one they call Isomobo. Agadagbabo is a piece of land in Kolokoma, and Isomobo is a piece of land in Equatorial. Now these are very old sites. Agadagbabo is said to be old. They're said to be the place where the Izon mine sprang from. And so traditionally, if there's a particular mango fruit very close to the mango tree, it may just be coming from that particular tree. So we've been here for as long as you can imagine. Difficult to say for sure how long we've been here, but a couple of other Ijaw communities migrated from communities here. And, they know themselves from Tombia to some segments of Ukrika and so on and so forth, left these small communities and this kingdom to these places, and then of course other forms of interactions. We've been here as part of world history. From the days of slavery, this river was a thoroughfare. It's like a runway. So most of the slaves that came from the hinterland passed through here. Anyone that did not pass through Forcados passed through this place. And then when you go down, for those who know the terrain, as you go downstream, there's a place where you go leftwards towards Odbia, or you go straight on, and so on and so forth. Either way, you get to the ocean. So from this point, you have several ways, several routes to the ocean. Now, after the slave trade era was the palm oil trade era, and again, this was the route through which the palm produce was ferried to the ocean for export. And then that era passed, and then we have the oil and gas era, crude oil and gas era. And again, we are playing some significant role because about 500 meters to my right, from where I sit, is the most polluting gas flare that Shell has in this world. It is projected to about 60 meters or so it can pollute forever and pollute as far as possible. So from here, it can pollute up to Delta State, to Edo State, to River State, and so on. It's not far away from here. And for those of you who are very observant, you may have noticed your chairs push you a bit. If you didn't notice that, it's not because it didn't push you, but just because it didn't observe. This is the largest gas field that Shell has ever discovered. It's a fairly large field. And that particular facility I'm talking about is gathering gas for export as liquefied natural gas. And the gas equivalent of what they have is 60,000 barrels every day. So far, there's a plan to expand it with a little bit of extra facility around the facility. So, in this oil and gas era, we are still very significant. If not for how we stand, perhaps we'll have been evacuated from this place so that they will have enough room to keep polluting the Niger Delta. But somehow we've been able to resist that so far. I don't know if in the future they will still come to say we should move somewhere. But then I still will land up to do it in this land. So, like I said, historically we've been here, politically too, this little piece of land has been quite significant. Almost all the politicians in this country come around long before I was born, from the time of Nangazikile through the time of Okilo and everybody. They come around and pass through here. In the olden days too, during the evangelization, so to speak, of this part of the world, that's the colonial era or pre-colonial era, the fathers and all those Christian leaders were normally ferried from community to community or kingdom to kingdom. And most times they get here and stay a night, and then they are moved onwards to maybe Salvador or somewhere else, as the case may be. Or we just see them pass by, ferried upstream. Aside that, there are a few other historic things that you may need to know about the River Non. So apart from slaves and palm produce and oil and gas, there was a time that Mungo Park insisted that he must discover the mouth of the Niger, because the River Niger was considered a little bit of an enigma. So from the Futajolan Hills, they tried as much as possible to find where it empties to. It's like, what kind of river that we see everywhere, and then where does it end? Where does it? So they saw where it comes from, but where it ends, so to speak, they were not able to see. So Mungo Park undertook the voyage of discovering the mouth of the Niger. Then he came as far as he could, but unfortunately he died at Bossa, or Busa, some call it, in today's Niger State. And his paperwork was recovered and sent to England. And so several years later, the Lander brothers came to complete that particular mission. And on their way, they went past the rapids that were said to have killed Mungo Park, and then they were sailing smooth downstream. And they came as far as possible, as far as close to Onitsha and Asaba. In that general area, they were kidnapped. They were abducted and taken as slaves. So they were taken into slavery. And they were slaves in the court of the Obi of Onitsha. So while they were there in that helplessness, in that hopelessness, whether to be eaten as meat or to continue in servitude forever, they were lucky to have met Ijaw traders. So the Ijaw traders who have been used to the white people for so long because of our proximity to the ocean. In those days, we could speak most of the European languages, from Portuguese to English to whatever, all those ones that came by to trade. So it didn't take long for them to identify that these were British people. And so they discussed with them and understood their fate. And they decided to intervene. So they bought them from the Onitsha people, negotiated and bought them from the Onitsha people, from the Igbos. And then they ferried them downstream, to Brass and then to Akasa. And they were released back to their UAC uncles or cousins. And for the first time in a long time, they were baited thoroughly. And then they were finally shipped to England. And they were celebrated as having discovered the mouth of the river Niger. So, what I'm just trying to underscore is that the River Non has been here. We've been here too. So we've been active participants or passive participants of world history. And I believe we'll continue so until the piece of land here is completely destroyed and we have the people destroyed. Otherwise, we'll continue to be. Sometimes I tell these stories just to make our guests enjoy the fact that you are in some place that is historic. Having said that, I believe that we may soon transit to the middle of the oil thief so that you don't sit here forever. But I want to say that poetry has not been more significant than it has been today. Today's poem is so moving and now I understand why I have to learn poetry as well. Because in a few minutes, it was moving my spirits from where they've always been to come and be part of this session. So I want to thank you again for that. At the end of this visit, I will give a complimentary copy to the leader of your team, whom I will encourage. You sit up because you're sitting so relaxed, you're getting up a bit. It's not good for your team. So maybe try and sit upright a bit so that you won't be tempted to enjoy too much of the hospitality. And you will have your hands. Because normally when guests leave, the person leaves by himself. So they will leave silently and then you will stay here. Okay, having said that, the real of the oil thief. I can see a few faces who have seen the book and who may have read the book. It is the untold story of the Niger Delta. It is bringing to focus some of the things we already know, some of the things we are familiar with, but I can tell you that there are also a lot of things in here that you are not familiar with. Because while we are here, or whilst we are here, you cannot say you know what is happening in your rooms back home right now. Yes. So if you go back home, your son or daughter or wife may need to tell you what had just happened at home. So to that extent, there are a couple of things that may be completely strange. You'll be surprised that there are such things happened. That is what it is. And the title, The Riddle of the Oil Thief, is so titled because there is a difference between the thief and victims of thievery. I can tell you that most of us in this room are victims of oil thievery. Unfortunately, most of us in this room are also considered thieves by the thieves. So it's that kind of irony. And I felt that why should I be in this world, walking in these woods and these swamps, and then people keep saying that non-thieves, victims of thievery, are thieves. The whole world believes that the Niger Delta man, whether king or chief or poet or pauper or pirate, is an oil thief. In fact, an economic saboteur. Meanwhile, the thieves who are feeding fat, who have private jets, who have yachts, who have houses and golf courses across the world and refineries across the world, are seen as saints. If they were answering Patrick, they would be Saint Patrick. And then we are oil thieves. And I felt that we must change the story now. So this book was written very quickly, very, very quickly. Because for the last several decades, I've been receiving all kinds of envoys from the world to this part of the world. And I talk about these things, and I show them things, and I take them places and so on and so forth. So from 2019, particularly as pandemic started, I felt no, it is not good enough for me to just talk about these things, and then there's no reference material. And so I should quickly put in place reference material before it is long. So if not for the publishers and a few persons here, I said they are publishers. If not for publishers, I wasted my time. We'll have launched this book in 2020. Because by 2020 June or so, the manuscript was out to the first editor. But we were able to launch it last year, June. It took about a year of publishing protocols. So that's what the book is about. There are academic materials, academic books, or academic papers, or whatever written. The about oil and gas and the exploitation and the pollution and so on and so forth. A lot, there's no doubt about it. But just like the forward writer wrote, that, but none is like this. None is like this. And if you ask me whether I was inspired, maybe I was. Because the first thing was, okay, let me just write something. But it's explosive. And then I was going to get materials. I was going to get materials that I could refer to, something I could reference. But they were just not there. Because if a bure, for example, was abused means raped by an oil worker, okay, in 1990, while she was 12 years old. And then today she is 40 years old. And then there was no police report ever, because she did not go to the police. And her father was not rich enough to make a mountain out of it. Okay, to make a molehill out of a mountain. That was a mountain. And then now I want to talk about it, so I can't talk about it, because it is not there in the academic texts or somewhere in Google. And I said, no. I must write it the way it is. And so, this is some kind of innovation, just to ensure that we capture all the stories. Nothing here is exaggerated. In fact, for those girls who were abused at 12, one of the men who looked at this manuscript at a point said, look, 12, they're too young now. And he was begging me to make it 14. In fact, to make it like 16, just to be believable. I said it's not about believability, it is about the fact. So I had to manage it, manage to raise it to like 14. Not because it was 14. For those who are from here and for those who are from this general area, the Niger Delta, you know how brutal these oil people are. Most of them are pedophiliacs from England and America and everywhere else, and even some from Nigeria who are that brutal. Things they won't do in their villages, when they come around here, around oil communities, they do them. And we thought that we should capture them. So that is what this book is about. It is supposed to set the world ablaze, but the world is burning without flames. So it may be actually burning, but at least nobody is dying, so far. And maybe because it was written by a king, and the king used to be in the military, and his cosmates are majors general for a long time now. I think everyone felt that we should just take it the way it is. Because it's actually true. There are stories about the police here as well. But they are true. When you read it, you know that it is true. And so, what else can you do? It is like, well, how will we do now? So let us try to adjust. In fact, the sweet thing about this book is that when it was launched, of course, a former chief of army was around in the launching. There are a couple of generals in the launching, close to 7 to 10 of them. But the Navy, the FOC, when he saw the copy and they read through it, he said they should come and get copies. That is something they must read. And so he came and got 20 copies. And if you are, those of you who are following the media, you must have seen that last week when they decorated senior naval officers, the chief of naval staff said that senior naval officers are colluding with oil thieves. He used the word oil thieves. And so they must change. They are the ones that are sabotaging the efforts of the Nigerian state towards sanitizing that business. It's very possible that he has read it. So, the facts are so real that there's nothing you can do about it, except to change. So, it may be more interesting if maybe specific questions are asked so that it becomes a dialogue instead of a monologue. Even though it's not usual, the king, while on this throne, is actually the king, and fairly kingly. But as much as possible in projecting the riddle of the oil thief, I've tried to look as simple as I can outside of this room to at least successfully mingle with other authors and enthusiasts and everyone else. But today we are not going to separate the king from the author. We are going to manage through because of other small challenges involved in trying to manage that separation. So, having said that, I will want to allow for members of the delegation to ask questions or advise, so to speak, suggest if you want me to read portions of the book randomly. I could select a few portions. If you want to ask specific questions, I'll do that. A couple of persons here have read the book. I know that Annette has read it. Tepe has read it. Yal has read it. Okay, he has read it. Read it for 2 days. I think she finished the book. And so on. So, if you ask questions somehow, I think it will make this segment a little more interactive. Iberifa.
Right.
It's Uncle Mimi.
What?
Part of the story. And while we interact, remember to close this courtesy visit or call. His Majesty speaks last. If His Majesty speaks and you are still talking, the business is still going on. When he talks and nobody talks, we know we have come to the end. So you are free to ask any question you want Their Majesty to respond to. It's open.
Okay, the floor is open.